A husband, who happens to be a doctor, and his wife are in the middle of a heated argument at the breakfast table. In a huff, he stands up, points his finger, and snaps, "And for the record, you're no good in bed either," before storming out of the house. After cooling down, he realizes he may have gone too far. Feeling guilty, he decides to call her to apologize. After several rings, she finally picks up. Impatiently, he asks, "What took you so long to answer?" With a calm tone, she replies, "I was in bed." "In bed? At this hour? Doing what?" "Getting a second opinion." A new retirement home opened in town with separate floors for men and women. After a few weeks, the staff called all the residents together to explain the rules. They said, "After hours, no men are allowed on the women's floor, and no women on the men's floor. If you break the rule, the fine is $25 the first time, $50 the second, and $100 the third." Suddenly, an old man raised his hand and asked, "How much for a season pass?" An old man goes to the doctor. The doctor sighs and says, "I'm sorry, but your tests are back. You've got cancer and Alzheimer's." The old man shrugs and says, "Well, at least I don't have cancer." My wife, Laura, had been asking me for weeks to varnish the wooden seat on our toilet. After procrastinating far too long, I finally decided to tackle the task while she was out running errands. Feeling proud of my handiwork, I finished the job and left the house, confident the varnish would have enough time to dry. As it turns out, my timing was way off. Laura came home, got undressed, and got ready for a shower. Before stepping in, she sat on the freshly varnished toilet seat. Unfortunately, when she tried to stand, she realized, much to her dismay, that the varnish hadn't completely dried. She was stuck. When I got home, I found Laura in quite the predicament. We tried everything, pulling, twisting, even using some olive oil, but nothing worked. Finally, I had no choice but to remove the entire toilet seat from the bowl. With Laura wrapped in a sheet for modesty, I drove her to the hospital emergency room, the toilet seat still firmly attached. Once there, the ER doctor carefully assessed the situation. It wasn't exactly the most dignified moment, and the awkwardness in the room was palpable. Trying to lighten the mood, Laura laughed and said, "Well, doctor, I bet this is a first for you." The doctor, without missing a beat, grinned and replied, "Oh, I've seen plenty of these situations, but this is the first one I've seen mounted and framed." A doctor noticed his patient's red, flushed face and said, "Looks like high blood pressure." The patient nodded. "Yeah, it runs in my family." "Your mother's side or your father's side?" asked the doctor. "Neither," the patient replied. "My wife's." The doctor frowned. "That doesn't make sense. How can you get it from your wife's family?" The patient sighed and said, "Trust me, Doc. Meet them sometime. Eat." A Boeing 777 was cruising smoothly at 33,000 feet when a cocky young F-16 fighter pilot zoomed by at Mach 2. Over the radio, he bragged, "Hey, Captain, check this out." He did a barrel roll, shot straight up into the sky, then came screaming back down with a sonic boom. "Pretty cool, huh?" he asked. The 707 pilot calmly replied, "Very impressive. Now, watch this." The big jet just kept flying straight and level for 5 minutes. Finally, the captain came back on the radio. "Well, what did you think of that?" The puzzled F-16 pilot asked, What did you do?" The 777 pilot chuckled. "I got up, stretched my legs, used the bathroom, grabbed a coffee and a cinnamon roll, and booked 3 nights at a 5-star hotel, all paid for by the company. Johnny is always the target of teasing from the other boys in the neighborhood who like to call him stupid. Their favorite trick is to offer him a choice between a nickel and a dime, and Johnny always takes the nickel. One day, after Johnny takes the nickel yet again, a neighbor pulls him aside and says, "Johnny, those boys are making fun of you." Don't you know a dime is worth more than a nickel, even though the nickel's bigger? Johnny grins and replies, well, if I took the dime, they'd stop doing it, but so far I've made $20. Tim finally decided it was time to tie the knot with his longtime girlfriend. One evening, not long after their honeymoon, he was busy organizing his golf clubs in the garage. His wife stood nearby, quietly watching him in thought. After a long stretch of silence, she finally broke it. Tim, I've been thinking. Now that we're married, maybe it's time for you to give up golf. You spend so much time on the course, and I'm sure you could sell your clubs for a good price. Tim froze, his face suddenly filled with horror. Concerned, she asked, Darling, what's wrong? For a moment there, he said slowly, you sounded just like my ex-wife. Her eyes widened in shock. Ex-wife? I didn't know you were married before. I wasn't, Tim replied with a smirk. Two women were playing a round of golf when one of them teed off. To her dismay, the ball veered off course and flew straight toward a group of men playing on the next hole. The ball struck one of the men, who immediately doubled over, clutching his hand and falling to the ground in clear discomfort. Alarmed, the woman ran over, full of concern. I'm so sorry. Please let me help. I'm a physiotherapist. I can ease the pain if you'll let me. The man, still wincing, waved her off. I'll be fine in a few minutes, he said, though his face told a different story. She persisted, and after a bit of hesitation, he finally agreed. Gently, she moved his hands aside, loosened his grip, and began to massage the area with expert care. After a few moments, she asked with a kind smile, How does that feel? He sighed in relief. It feels wonderful, he admitted. But I think my thumb is still the real problem. Johnny and his friend Billy were strolling through the park when they came across three women sitting on a bench, each eating a banana. As they passed by, Johnny cheerfully said, Howdy, ladies. Curious, Billy asked, Do you know those women? Nope, Johnny replied. But I can tell you who they are. The nun, the prostitute, and the bride. Stunned, Billy asked, How in the world did you figure that out? Johnny grinned and explained, Well, the nun held the banana in one hand and used the other hand to break it into small, neat pieces before eating it. The prostitute, he continued, grabbed the banana with both hands and shoved the whole thing into her mouth. Wow, that's pretty clever, Billy said, impressed. But how did you know the third one was a bride? Johnny chuckled. Oh, that was the easiest one. She held the banana with one hand and pushed her head toward it with the other.